Hello, everybody. This is Lily Kolosova, and welcome to my show. And today I have a return guest of mine, um, Roald Boom. And so today, welcome, Roald.
Welcome, Lily. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation last time. We met at the Respect Point with other people at Revealers Dialogue show. We went into a lot of topics about self-awareness in the past, but today our topic is going to be divine justice. So welcome, Roald, and please tell us about yourself a little bit and about the topic that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. Well, thank you as well for having me on again. It is good to see what you share and all the things that you've been involved in to try to bring out as much as we can bring out for those who it resonates with, for those who also have some kind of assistance by seeing certain perspectives from certain directions, which may help open up and clarify subjects. So that's great work that you're doing, and that's why I'm on it as well today. I usually don't speak much about myself as a person or historically. It doesn't really matter that much what I have done or where I've been in a historical sense. In short, I think I went into it last time a little bit, but I want to say maybe a few lines, but no more because it's not that important. But from a young age, I was intuitive like you were. I sensed there was something wrong with a lot of the world and the adults. I noticed that things were not right. People were trying to get me to get into work and money and all these things. I had already a pretty wealthy lifestyle because my father was successful enough to give us plenty of luxury, and I felt it didn't make me happy. So at some point I had a breaking point, started looking for answers. What is life about? What is the truth? What is this all? What is this? Why is it here? What's the purpose? And so that was around 17, I think. And by the time I was about 19, I got pretty depressed because I couldn't get any solid answers to the mind. I had a breakdown. And then I had an epiphany, like spiritual, whatever you want to call it, a mystical experience of oneness. And I walked around for about 8 hours through a city being completely one with everything and intuitive, telepathic, totally unified. And I knew that everything had always been one and always was perfect, divinely just, right? There was a divine justice, and it had always been like that. And so a few days later, I found some books that really talked about the subject. And of course, for the last 20-something years, I have been studying all of that and going into meditation and deepening out, or basically removing much of the illusory structures. And so it was enabling me to remain more as what I am naturally without any overlay programs. That's basically as much as needs to be said about it. We're all on that kind of journey, although many people still are pretty entranced and in love with the world. But everybody at one point will have to come to that point where they say, what am I doing here? And so that's why we're talking about this subject today. You picked this title, which is a beautiful title about divine justice. And that's what I really wanted to go into, because technically there is nothing wrong. All is well. And this is something that is very difficult for a lot of people to see. I had struggled with it many, many times in my life as well. But the great news is that the moment that we give up the fight, the moment that we stop seeing the problems, the moment that we are able to rest in that divine eternal state which precedes everything and out of which everything arises, we get that divine justice that is the right, the eternal, intrinsic right to be at peace, to be at rest, to be already back before anything ever was created. So this is the thing. The beauty of it is the war was over before it started. You know, and if we are just able to embrace that reality, if we're able to relax enough, if we're just able to basically not deny ourselves that freedom, where we feel often that we think we need to do something, we need to work out karma, we need to get rid of all kinds of obstacles and all kinds of programs. In a relative level, that is true. And I did many years of that as well, in a sense of activity, a doing, an undoing. But the reality that you come to at some point after a while is that the fight was for nothing. In fact, the fight was the very thing that was fueling the problem. And so, I think even in the religious sense, I don't like to use a lot of religious things because it triggers so much with people, and I don't have much background at all in anything that is religious, but they say at the gospel, they say that means the good news, the great news. They say that that's what gospel means, right? The gospel of this, the gospel of that, but they say that means the good news, which I think is beautiful, because the good news is that the war was over before it started. All is well, we are already eternal, and we need to do nothing at all in reality to be free.
Yes, we follow our own true self or true purpose. And when you do follow your own true purpose, you don't question if this is your purpose or not. Because I think what happens, and you were talking about fighters, and I call myself a warrior sometimes, but a lot of people think that what I mean is a fighter, and it's not. And I can recommend a lot of books to people that can read about that, what it is. But to me, that point, and this is why it's more metaphorical for people. So they can, because to me, as you talk about this divine justice and how to step into it, and how to some people say how to understand this. What I've been observing is happening is that the point of this turn or awakening, as I put it in the past, or this turning point, is what we are programmed with, is this savior journey that we take. Savior, being a waiting for a savior, or even a journey of being a savior of self. That is still not the point of divine justice, because divine justice is the point where you turn into hero journey, where you step out of the savior journey, even the moment of that I gotta save myself. Once that moment occurs, that's the warrior stand. But then you make the turning point. This is a turning point, and then you turn into the path of hero journey.
Yes.
Which is you. And then once you're on that journey, then you are following your purpose. And this is what I have seen so much of it out there. And I am not saying this in a negative way. I'm just saying that what I'm observing, what I'm seeing, and I'm just stating my observation.
Yeah,
what I see is there's a lot of spiritual dependency that people put on so many layers of this programmed reality, or the beast, let's say, or our enemy. Let's say, yes, it is a human enemy. It's the enemy of humanity, and it is a spiritual war. Yes, we are at spiritual war, but, and we don't like to say but, and this is also the recognition of your own hero journey. And I think we've seen enough movies, inspiring movies, because what we're trying to do here, Roald, I think you will agree with me, what we're trying to do here is inspire other people to step on this hero journey, and step into their true self.
Yes.
And this is what you explain, like that point of recognition that you are all those things.
Yeah.
You are the raw consciousness. You are the magician. You are the occultist. You are the source creator in human form. You are all of that.
Yeah.
This is all of the possibilities of you as a pure intent.
Yeah.
And this is where that pure intent is birthed from the source of your breath.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the beauty of that, what you said, is that a lot of people lately, there is this kind of duality in the action, the activity of doing things, and the surrender to this original state where we're already at peace, where we're already complete, we're already as our true self in eternity, let's say. And whether it's good to rest there or whether it's good to do things. And my point is not so much that there's something wrong with activity or with doing or with taking action. Only point I'm really trying to make all the time, which is basically to my life so clear, is that when we accept that everything is good, that all is well, that we are within ourselves at peace, that there's not really any activity that we need to do to become something more, you all surrender. It's really authentic flow will come. So I say, yes, we will do. I create a lot of things. I do a lot of things. I have different businesses. I have a permaculture garden, hydroponic garden. I make the tool, all these things. But these things just happen as a result. And the more I am at rest within, in the true self, let's say, in the eternal state, I'm not so focused on those things. They're going to happen anyway. But the more at peace that we ourselves are within, the more divine the creations will be. And in fact, if you see some of the more, let's say, wiser people, take, for example, Sadhguru is one of those teachers that lives in India that has, I don't know how many foundations. He has set up, I think, 10, 20, 30 schools. They're feeding poor people. They're doing so much, but it comes from that place of surrender within. And the activity is only something that will happen. It will continue. And as long as we are in battle, in the battlefield, or at war with something like an AI or some kind of fall that we made or some kind of enemy, we're actually, the thing is about this enemy is it's actually a projected enemy. The moment that we imagine that there is a problem, then we see the problem, we externalize the problem, and then our very divine source energy starts feeding that and making it a reality. So the point I'm really making in most of the videos for myself, and then if it helps people, great, is that the trap is like that Chinese finger trap. You know that Chinese finger trap? You put your finger in, and the moment you put any effort that's too fast and too violent and too forceful, you cannot get your finger out, right? So the problem is created with that which says, first of all, that there is a problem, and second of all, then feeding that problem when it really is only when we believed it. And so on a micro level, we could call this the separate self, where we say this is the ego or something like that. But the point is the ego is only born when we buy into that idea. So the war only starts when we step into the ring. You see, if I step into a boxing ring and wait long enough, somebody will step into the boxing ring to fight me. But there was no fight to begin with. I built the ring, I stepped into the ring, and then I basically looked for the problem, and somebody will manifest.
Yes. Okay.
That's all self-created.
You got frozen there for a second, but so I want to add to that. In my introduction to my Wild Wisdom Warriors series that I did, I talked about the wheel of deception or the wheel of illusion. And yes, I talked even in a couple of months ago, I decoded that wheel of illusion. And I put it out there, this is the way I see it. And I said, all you have to do is step out of that wheel.
Yeah.
You step out of the wheel, And then you are not dependent or even afraid of any wheels that are there because you're out of it. And this is what I see. And lately, we have a lot of people that are following all this so-called alternative media and alternative communities where there is spiritual work and spiritual teachings are presented to humanity. And there is a lot of, in which you mentioned, this AI thing. But the people that are talk about it, they speak from the perspective of the wheel, being in the wheel about it, as another layer of control to be afraid of or to break through or something. But once you step out of the wheel fully and step into your pure spirit source, into your essence of your being, once you step in that, then you can't express fear over another layer. Do you know how many layers there are to this control system, to these programs? There is enormous amount of different programs. The patterns might be the same, but the programs, you know, the patterns are used binary codes to program people. But this is the thing, and this is, I think, where we can see when people are insincere with their awakening. They're not truthful with themselves, and they're not truthful with others, because they're still stuck in the wheel of deception. And as they start to perceiving AI, let's say, or another new layer that they've uncovered in this matrix system or in this system, they come still from a perspective, what I say, it's the original sort of program, it's the God program, which is based on the victim and victimizer original intent, which is the twist, the original twist that twist our emotional body. And this is when we get propelled into a programmed state of being. And that is what really, Roald, you've been at this for a long time. I've been born aware. Like we talk about that, I state that that's me. I'm not saying that everybody has to be like me. This is my purpose. Apparently, this is what I needed to do. So this is what I've seen all my life, is there is a twist that unless people, it's a foundation for this control system. And if people are still not recognizing that, then they are operating from it. Because the original twist, they're still building it on friction energy. They're still building themselves or their awakening path or their truth path on the friction energy, which is stuck in duality, and which does nothing more than, when you say you're a creator being and you recognize you're a creator being, then if you're responsible for that, you know you're creating it. Mm-hmm. You're creating it. And so people creating another layer of a control system that is like new, which is another fake awakening type of thing that people are going through. And this is hopefully, for some people, this has hopefully been a lost layer that they have to break through. And some people in alternative communities are starting to see that there is nothing else that they can put out there or create beyond that, beyond the AI system. And it's true. I know that entity. I've seen some things throughout my life that I've seen some stuff with this stuff. But not to say that it ever scares me. I'm an investigator. I'm a consciousness investigator. I I had recognized from a very young age that there is a crime that is committed against humanity. And I am here to investigate that crime and present my findings. So this is what my videos and my graphs are all about. It's my findings.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
mine. I'm not saying that they're given to me by anybody. They're all my own work, my own process.
Yeah, exactly. And what you say about the wheel of samsara, that's the, you know, basically the wheel that you described on your video with all the systems and the archons and the different systems and all in it. It's true that when we step out of that wheel, and that's the question, you know, the question is, have we come to a point of maturity? And I put myself in there as well, because you see, I have times where I can sit more quiet, and I have times where I'm more busy with business and things that I have to do still in the world, doing all these things that I'm doing. But what I've found is that the divine justice that we are given by the universe itself, right, which is our true original place, is that at any point we are free to put our attention on anything at all. And that's, I sometimes take people through that exercise, and I would say, for example, well, I don't know if you have a car, but can you see your car? You know, you can see your car. Can you see your mother, or can you see your dog? You know, in your mind, you can go to different places. And you can also go to the joy, to the well-being, to the goodness, to this surrendered place of being. And this is the divine justice, because we can put our attention on anything that we really would like to put our attention on. The question is, are we mature enough to just rest with the peace, the love, and the truth, the silence, the stillness, the serenity, this bliss, or whatever you want to call it as words, but because it's there, it's right here, it's permeating the entire universe. There's really nothing other than that. We're bathing and floating in this beauty of everything. However, we can also turn our attention towards a problem, then our energy starts to be siphoned off into the problem, and we grow that beast. And in that sense, it could be seen like some of these movies like Spider-Man things and Fantastic Four and stuff. Some of these monsters that they have, let's say, whatever you throw at them makes them grow. So you can throw water at them, electricity at them, you can throw bombs at them, but whatever would happen, they would absorb the energy and grow. And this is, in a way, what we call the AI, or whatever you want to call it, the fall. That once you're in the wheel and you give the attention to anything in that wheel that is war, that is fighting, that is resistance, that is forceful, that is basically saying that there is a problem and we need to do something about it. The moment we do that, it's actually the AI itself that says, thank you, feed me. That's the beauty of this system. We actually create the wheel ourselves. And so on a micro level and a macro level.
Exactly. It's like, you know, like a mice in the wheel.
Yeah.
It only moves when the mice is running, when the mice is putting the energy into it. That's the only time it moves. That's the only time it lives.
Yeah.
Yes, we are getting to the core of that with the AI, the way they talk. And it's kind of interesting, that AI thing that came back again. Honestly, I've talked about it 2 years ago. Well, maybe not 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, in October of 2015. I had talked and had a, you know, big reveal about what this inorganic consciousness is and its source, that it's the core of all the deception. So yes, it is the core of deception, this inorganic consciousness, or this AI. It's not really AI, it's what behind the AI.
And it's what we created. That's the amazing.
That's what we created, and that's the thing, is the huge part of it. And this is why I said 2017, the choices will be visible, because if the people are still, if their wheel is still turning, the wheel of deception is still turning, they will have recognition that it is because they are putting energy into it.
Yeah, the game is over the moment that we allow the game to be over.
Exactly. And like I said, and a couple of weeks ago, I even had a little joke, the way I like to talk about with jokes and stuff. I said, hey, when everybody has to put their cards on the table, we know who the winner is, but we also know the other thing. Game over.
Mm-hmm.
Game over. That's the thing.
Individually, the question is, are we individually, and that's what I'm saying. I'm always talking about basically me when I say we or anything, because I'm really speaking about this. I noticed in myself the following, right? And this is, I think, one of the most important points that I made a while ago with some things that happened in the last few days. But the point I was really trying to make is this. In my own experience, when we sit down and we stay still, and we say, for example, whatever you want to call it, I don't like the word meditation. I call it quantum resting now. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that when we sit still and we put our attention on the well-being that's in the body, you know, if I just right now, focus my attention on the tip of my nose, I can feel the tip of my nose. It's tingling. I look from within. I feel the sensation in the body. And I can feel an aliveness. If you close your eyes, it helps a lot. You don't have to, but you can. And you can feel the tip of your nose from the inside. You can do the same thing with the sensation in your hands. And there is inside of our body, let's say, it seems to be inside, but finally it's not, but that's not the point right now. We can put our attention on what is good. I call it well-being. Well-being because it's a very subtle joy. It's what the cats have when you see them purring, just laying, not thinking, not planning about the future, not fighting any wars or doing anything to try to defeat AI or any parasitic entities or demons. They're just laying down like most animals. I once saw an iguana that sat in the tree for 4 days in one spot. And they just have this natural well-being. And when we rest in this natural well-being, we will notice that all is well. And so what I'm saying is that when I sit down, for example, in a, depending on different stages when things are happening around me, just to have the mind completely not throwing up any thoughts. So in other words, no voices that are going on in the head at all. We take, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes a day, and you sit down and you say, for 20 minutes, whatever comes up, I drop it. And it means it's not an activity. It's literally you see something coming up, a thought about tomorrow or editing a video or making another video, or going to work or getting groceries, whatever it may be, any thought whatsoever, we drop it. If we just allow ourselves 20 minutes a day where we don't run with any of these movements, no thoughts, no emotions, nothing that needs to be worked out, we will notice in most cases, and that still counts for me in most cases, for a period. I can sometimes be quiet for 30, 40 minutes, but not in a row. There will be things coming up, and then I drop them. That's meditation. True meditation is when you see something arising, let it go. Because if we cannot be still for 2 or 3 minutes, when we are already doing so much for the waking hours, if we are awake for 14, 16 hours, we are already busy. Why not for 20 minutes sit still? And when we do, we notice that it's almost impossible to stop the thinking process. And that must, to me at least, indicate that there is something that is foreign. There's or at least something that is momentous. It has momentum in it. It has an unstoppable drive in it. It has a conditioning that's like a wheel of karma that keeps on wanting to focus on something. When in fact, the natural state of just resting is the harmony that will then, once it's embodied, and you can see it in many of the masters that have embodied a deep level of this silence and stillness, that their actions, if they flow, are so much more powerful because they come from the place that is undisturbed. And that's why I always say we can only help anyone as much as we are ourselves at. So if our level is wherever it is, then we can help people only up to that level. So the highest truth and the highest gift, the highest gift we can give to ourselves and our children and everyone in the world is to be as deeply surrendered, as deeply still and silent as we can, because that level is what we communicate. We never give more than we are. We only give what we are. And so we do as we do. We make videos all along. We do activities all along. There's nothing wrong with anything. All I'm always saying is that basically they say, I think it's one of the Christian things. I wrote it down here. It's first take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly enough to remove the speck from your brother's eye. You know, it's one of those things that I think from the Bible. But the point of that is, I can only help anyone to the level that I'm at. I cannot lift somebody above me. I can only take somebody, the strength is up to here, you know. If you lift a weight, you can pull basically up to, it's not even above your head in most cases. I cannot lift somebody of my own weight above my own head. As best as I can do is will be up here. And once I have to go above myself, it doesn't work. And so the greatest gift that we can give is to free ourselves, which means to liberate ourselves from the flaw, from the AI, from this constant conviction that there's something wrong. Because I can see it in the teachers that are surrendered deeply in their eyes, in their manners, in their vibration, in the emanation that they embody. If I know that all is well, that there is divine justice, it emanates, it communicates. Because of course it's good to help people, but if you could sit next to somebody that is in a form of suffering, psychological suffering, and there is this deep knowledge, this where you can carry a smile on your face because you know that we are already there. All is well because in eternity nothing ever happened. The perfection, the beauty, the joy, that's never been affected. And that is what we are. And that is the greatest help, because if you sit next to someone and just give them a smile, because you know that although they may believe they're stuck, although they may believe that they're in this division or this war or in this artificial intelligence fight or something, that if you know deeply within that the fight was already over before it started, then the little smile will communicate more than any of the words, basically, and any of the fighting and any of the advice and any of the tips and tricks. Anything that we do is less than the being of this which is already perfect. The divine justice is that we are already that.
Yes, so agree. That's so well said, what you said. It's beautiful, because this is the thing. When we are the liberty, we are the freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that can never be taken away from you if you are that. Mm-hmm. So in turn, what we are walking this path, sometimes I say, you know, and talking with this double meaning language, and I know we went into this little bit before in the language problem that we have, because it has double meaning. What we sort of talked about this in a little bit of a inverted way, as I like to say, because a lot of things I see as an inverted truth out there. That's inverted truth. And so the inverted truth of this is that we need to seek the freedom. We need to seek ascension. We need to seek this, or we need to become that or that.
Yeah, which insinuates that something that it insinuates that there is a problem to be worked out.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And people come from a point of not being that. And that's where the seeking coming from, or the fake prosperity structure that we have, you know, in here with the prosperity, spirit prosperity is inverted, right? And it's put, you know, on money, and that value is put on money. And so, and then they say, well, you gotta seek that prosperity. Well, to me, that's inverted, because the way I see it, I am a universal being with the free will, and I am the freedom, that prosperity, the liberation. I'm all of that. I'm the magician. I'm the occultist. I am all of that, except that in here, in this body consciousness that has been infected by AI and all the other layers of programming and the system, is what I need to break through to be all that, to be the liberty, to be the freedom. And so when you talk about why we can meet at the point respect, right here, like we're doing it right now, coming from a different perspectives, having different experiences in life, and coming to this realizations of who we are as a true human beings here, having this experience. And yet we can have a conversation because we do meet at the point of I am all that, you are all that, and we meet in collaboration. And there is what you pointed out earlier, Rod, there is no friction. There is no need to become anything. There is no need, even as a lot of people don't recognize how to rebel or how to fight. They think being a warrior is to fight this AI system or all of that. Well, at the core of all of this is AI system. No, that is the anti-life. This right here is the essence of life, the source of life. So I'm all of that because I have a living breath right here.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's
exactly.
all here.
Yeah.
It's all here. It's not anywhere on the external points of any. And I don't need to fight. I need to stand because the warrior stands the ground of being the freedom, being the liberation of soul, being the universal being in human form. You're all that. And so I don't need to become that anti-life force to eliminate. What I need to be is the life force.
Exactly.
Is the essence.
And that's the beauty
that,
of justice.
And then you act on that. And this is how you counterattack that. There is no attack in that.
No,
because as soon as you express your source power, which is power, because you created that, it cannot overpower you.
Yeah,
it cannot overpower you under any circumstances. No matter how many clowns gonna be running around and telling you, be afraid of this or be afraid of that, or here's another layer, here's another layer, here's another layer to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter because I am the power that created all that. And the recognition of that power within me has the power to laugh in its face if I choose to, or to call it whatever name I want to call it, or do whatever it is, whatever action I choose to take. Because my relationship with this programmed reality is right now is not, I'm not in fear of it. And this is the thing. So I have no need to fight it.
No, because fighting.
I have no need to fight it.
The moment
I'm just standing. I'm just standing my ground right here, right now. I'm saying I am the liberty. I am the free will. So it's powerless. It's so puny, as I used to say. It's so puny to a truly awakened human being, to a human being that is acting on his own essence.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the key.
Yeah, and then we come to the point where, in my own experience, again, if I would go back to the other thing before, is that when we sit down and if we are the divine essence, right? And it is just, it is harmonious, it is good, it is right, it is true, in all its beauty, in all its expression, we are that source consciousness. Now the question then becomes, like you said, are we willing to give up the fight with the problem that was imagined to exist? So we create whatever we want to call it, even if we call it AI or something like that, it must have come from source. So if we step out of the war, because there is no war, the problem is gone. In other words, the problem disappears by us not giving it volition. We believed it into existence. We created it by our own activity of feeling there was something to do, something that needs to be undone or created or improved or freed or dissolved, by creating this dichotomy, this duality that says, okay, I'm here, I'm divine consciousness, but the moment the but comes that says, but I have to create something, or I have to solve something, or I have to break the war, or create a war, or fight a war, or win the war, or anything that we feel that is not perfect, it starts from that moment that we believed it into existence. And so the dropping of the illusion, whether it's at the micro level of the personal person, the identity, the false self, like the ego structure, that we believe we are something in time, with the history, and that we have a body and that we're stuck in that body and that we're not just the source consciousness, all the way to the macro level where there's wars between countries or even galaxies or whatever you want to call it, whether that's there or not, I don't know, but that they talk about that as well. Whether it's micro level on our own, in our own being, or at the macro level at the countries fighting each other, it's all because there was from some point an assumed problem. There was an assumption that there was something that needed to be done. And once that doing started, we created one problem, then there were two more that came out of it, then we tried to solve that problem with the same level of consciousness, which is saying there's a problem, and then it creates 10 more, and it becomes the wheel, and it becomes a snowball. And the snowball is now so big that on a collective level, we see big troubles on all kinds of levels. But on the individual level, most people are fighting in the families and with themselves at the smaller level. And that's only because there was that split off, that moment in which the true self believed that there was something wrong and started to roll. If we can get to that moment that is prior, that moment which is outside of this wheel that you speak of samsara, the wheel where you're not looking in the wheel, but you step outside of the wheel, then there is immediately in that eternal position, or which is a place, it's not a position but a place, but the problem is dissolved instantaneously before it was even created. And if the majority of people on earth could step into that place, the place of the divine justice where there is no problem because it was never created, that is the greatest medicine, the greatest help that we could ever give to ourselves and everybody on the planet and all the animals and everything what we call this planetary system, which is a consciousness creation. So the greatest gift that anyone could ever give is to step out of it and stay outside, and then still we will create, we will do, we will manifest, when we make videos, we might build villages with eco villages with sustainable things, all these things are possible. There's nothing wrong with that. But once we've stepped out of the problem, we are become what they would call causal instead of effectual, because we now are working from the eternal problem, the problemless place, eternity itself. Divine justice is that we have that power.
Yes, and this is what divine justice is to me. It's that very fact this is that initiation, I think, into that divine justice, is that recognition and that stand in the eternal self, which is power beyond anything.
Yeah, it is the quantum field of harmony.
It is the that's beautifully put. Quantum field of harmony cannot be affected or even if we look from a scientific point of view, The quantum field of harmony cannot be disrupted by banded light.
No.
And I love how you say, and I even joke about it. Roald explained it so well in one of his videos, why people that are stuck in love and light program sound a little slow because the light is slow. It's the quantum field of harmony, universal creation, that which is pure essence of this universe. It exists. Gnostics talked about it as Sophia, right? That's what it is. It's the intelligence. It's the divine intelligence. It's the universal mind, as some people refer to. It's the living field, as I referred to in the past. There is so many different terms for it. But the thing is, where we are stepping into the point where actually this communications that we have and why we can meet at this respect point is because we are connecting on this more of a quantum level, and this is what we call it a telepathy. That's why you can use a whole different terms than I do, yet we understand each other. How do you explain that happening unless there is another layer, a quantum layer or quantum entanglement, some people can say that there is a quantum entanglement, but I am not saying that it is entanglement. Mm-hmm. It is more of a dance here, right? Because we're on our individual beings, on an individual path. So it is very individual, but yet here, and I've said this, I think in 2014, that the time's gonna come when we're gonna have to talk about and step into this more collective level, because we're here as individuals, but we're also part of this humanity, collective human consciousness that we are. And so we are part of this field, right? This universal intelligence that is the raw state of being, as some people refer to. And so that's what we are. We are part of it, part of that field. And this is what we communicate on. And this is what many people call a true telepathy. It's not what I call the telepathy that goes through the programming and through the technology that is within our mind. There is a technology. And so through that, the telepathy is, messages sent, words to words. We are not talking about here a telepathy that is of a mind, of a human body-mind consciousness source. We're talking about a universal living field through what we communicate as a living beings anchored in that field ourselves, which is at the source of our breath, right there. And so there we have it.
Yeah, and exactly. So, and exactly what you're saying, which is the beauty of the divine justice about this, is that source field, that, let's say, the quantum field of peace, of harmony, of justice, which is in itself in the original unmoved state. So it is a field which encompasses the original harmony. And what the beauty of it is that when we as individuals align ourselves with that state, then the speed of our oscillation, the vibration that we are, our energetic oscillation, starts to merge, unify, and speed up at the same speed. So when we come closer and closer to that quantum field of being, which is what true meditation is about, we start to speed up and align our energetic field with that quantum field. Then inevitably, as long as we have physical bodies, we will have to come back out, go into the world, and we do what we do. But now, our energy field is more of the quantum field. That's why they would say, thy will be done. Because once the Father and I are one, let's say, and I don't want to use too many of these terms, once I am one with that field, then there is no two. And once we go out into the world again and act, then we become a living expression of the best, finest quality that could possibly flow from us. And one thing I wanted to come back to, which I find a very, very important point, and this is like a test that anybody can do, I do it myself all the time, is this. I spoke to you about it earlier when we were going on about this, is if one sits for 20 minutes and we take the time, because we don't have to do anything all day, we just take those 10, 15, 20 minutes to sit down and just breathe and allow ourselves to be completely empty of anything at all. To the degree that something comes up, thoughts, emotions, this urge to do something, it shows a restlessness that shows our distance from this quantum field. The stiller that we can be, the closer that we can stay without having to do or be anything whatsoever. And so if we are far removed in this world and we're still unstill, we're not still not quiet, we're still not relaxed, to the degree that we're still infected with this movement or this tendency to create war and basically discord in ourselves and around ourselves, we'll notice that when we sit for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, that we cannot be still, because it shows the clutter and clamor that's still inside of us. And so the greatest good that we can ever do and the greatest test that we can run is to stay quiet for 20 minutes a day and notice what comes up. Because everything that comes up and has to come up, because it's something that's unfaced, it's this clutter and clamor that still wants attention, is actually that very last stuff we have to still dissolve, or at least surrender to and give up. And true meditation is really only that. It's like a test if we can rest as that quantum field, even if it's just a few minutes. Resting as the quantum field merges our fields, our energy bodies then become divine, and then once we come out again and do, our actions flow from the divine more and more. And it's really a beautiful test to see where we're at this level.
So agree with you, it's so beautifully put. When you are in harmony with the universal quantum field, which is the universal mind, and this is in the past, I referred to this as embodiment of the universal mind, then you in your body, this is what you are saying. Quantum resting helps you to heal your mind, put it in alignment with your, some people call it higher self, some people call it multidimensional self. Whatever I call it, a multidimensional thinking, is when you align your mind with this field and with the core of you, which is the source of your being, right there. And so I think from another side, we can go into it, and I can try to explain this from another side. If you see, people do not recognize, in one of my, still in 2014, a couple of my original interviews that I did, I talked to people about how much we don't know about our field. We have 90% of our, even the scientists tell us, 90% of our energy here is dark matter. And scientists know very little about it, or humanity. Let's just say scientists might know a lot more about it, but humanity as a whole knows very little about it. But yet, this is a huge part of us. We can't deny that it doesn't exist, right? So for people to understand what it is, and I said, this is part of the cosmic mind. It is part of the creation. It is still part of us. We exist. That energy flows through us. That's as much as science had told us. It flows through us freely. It's there. So what I'm saying is this quantum field that we talked about, and this is when it comes to, because we don't, this is our spiritual self that we don't mentally cannot comprehend. But what we can do is have our mind be in harmony with it, in balance with it. And this is when we are aligned, all of our mind, body, and soul, as people used to say in the old days. But it's a little bit different than that, because that is still through all this separation and all these wheels of programs. But when you really, what we're really talking about is the center of your being. And then this is the way we can only express this. This is the point of you as a magician, of you as an occultist. This is a point of you as the universe. Because we've thrown these terms out, but we can only throw so many terms that people can relate to. And this is what I say, right, Roald? Unless you begin, like what you said, giving yourself the chance and the ability to get in tune with that universal mind, to give yourself and your mind the ability to step on this metamorphosis process, I call it. This metamorphosis process. Give yourself the right
to be divine.
To be divine.
Yeah.
And that's the divine justice. And so a lot of people have talked about that we do live in judgment time. And I say, you know, it is a judgment for anti-life force. It is. It is a judgment for the wheel of deception. But for those of us that standing in the true self of who we are, it is divine justice.
Yeah, and another beautiful thing about divine justice is that in the end, even the ones that don't stand there are saved, in the sense that there is nothing but the original divine justice, the source consciousness. So even if there is we could say in a way that we have the choice to be lost, we have the choice to be at war, we have the choice to be in disharmony, and it really wouldn't in the end even matter for those who will stay in that. It's just the play that they love, and they are allowed to be lost in that. But the beauty of divine justice is that, yeah, well, you pick that. You can pick war and you can pick joy. You know, you can pick whichever you want. And that's the beauty of the justice. It leaves an exit door for your attention to return home to source consciousness at all time. In the midst of war, in the midst of pain and suffering, there is the divine justice that right there is the exit door. All you need to do for anyone is to allow yourself to accept that we are already free. And that is that quantum divine justice, that field which you only have to put your attention on. And one more thing I wanted to say about what you said about the dark matter, what I find so interesting about Nassim Haramein, who talks about these things, and I'm not a quantum physicist or quantum mechanic, but he was describing in one of his videos that if you take all the matter in the universe and you squeeze it into 1 square inch, then the energy field of that square inch would be lower than any square inch left with empty space. So the empty, and he had a calculation that actually, he says it proves, I'm not into that kind of mathematics, but he said that, you know, something to the something force, it was like, I don't know how many zeros, 49 and a zero, I don't know how many zeros, but the point was, when we squeeze all of the known matter in the universe, and we take all the space out, and then we're left with the square inch, and all the energy that would be in that square inch would be less than every square inch of empty space in the universe. So it shows that the dark matter, or the emptiness, the void, the original quantum emptiness, is the highest level of energy, if you wish to say it. So the nothingness, or the emptiness, or the stillness is not something that can be called less because there is no form. It in fact is more because it has the highest energy field there is. It's just so high that it cannot be expressed in form, because that will be a limitation on this dark matter quantum field. The quantum field is non-formal, unshaped, unmanifested, because it is such a high form of energy. So being still, being silent, being empty, being quiet, no form, no creation, no doing, no acting, is not a lower form or a lower thing or a lower manifestation. It, in fact, is the higher vibration. So it's not a denial of existence, that when we have existence, it's great, and when we have nothing, that's like being afraid of death. Death or emptiness, if you wish to call it, is the higher realm. The realm of emptiness is the highest vibrating realm. And so it's not a negation. It's not a diminishing. It's not a drop down. It's a step up. Emptiness, silence, stillness, quantum resting, this field of universal consciousness is actually so highly vibrating that once we align with it and come back, we are better creators. Then the divine warrior, like you say, his warrior spirit, which is to stand in this place, and you, without doing anything, without fighting, without going against anything, we manifest the beauty, the silence, the stillness, the love, the harmony, all the beautiful things that we can create by simply embodying that quiet, silent quantum field. That's the divine justice. We all can and are that if we just allow ourselves to be that.
You said it so beautifully again. It's so perfect. Like, this explains a lot of things. This is why I say, you can laugh in the face of all this stuff. I said, when you stand in that field, the power of it, and this is what people talk about, the vibrations and how to go from one level to another, and what's the higher vibration. This is it. This is it, what you just explained. And it can be attained because it's always there. It is you who have to align with it. Its source, like I said, is at the core of your breath. It's right there. It's and this is what but like you said, some people say, well, Lily, you say you're a warrior and you're not a fighter, but a lot of times you just tell people, oh, well, that's a bunch of shit. What they're talking about. But it's because I can say that because I'm standing there, I'm not in fear of anybody's programs, because there is no one that's standing above me who can say how much access I can have to this universal quantum field. Nobody can tell me that I can have access to it or cannot have access to it.
Only you.
Only me.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be stuck with your illusionary cage, in your cage that you created for yourself, that you don't have access to your divine being, then I'm going to laugh at you and I'm going to tell you that's a bunch of shit.
but they can have it. I wrote down a quote here. That came from Barry Long. And he said, in one of the things, I saw it go by on Facebook a couple of days ago, he said, do not look for more than what is, or you will find it and lose yourself. So like you said, people there's nobody that can keep us from standing as the divine quantum field of harmony, of justice, of joy, of beauty, of love, of goodness, of rightness. Nobody can prevent that except if we ourselves put that limit on ourselves. So that's why he said, do not look for more than what is, or you will find it and lose yourself. We can find millions of problems that are unsolvable, that we are stuck in, that we are trapped as, that we're prisoners of. And the only thing we're really doing is limiting ourselves instead of just standing as the divine quantum field. So I think we're going to go and repeat a lot, and we wanted to keep this video not too long. I really want to thank you for coming on and having me on here to talk about this, because the beauty of this gift is it is a gift that you give yourself. If we just allow ourselves to be free, then we are free. Or if we think we have to jump a million hoops, we can jump a million hoops. If we have to fight 10 wars before we allow ourselves to be free, it's also good. Fight those 10 wars. But the suffering that we see on this planet is all self-created. There's no aliens, there's no AIs, there's no programming that is doing it to us. There is only one divine source, and the source allows it. And that's why I say God does not make mistakes. Now, of course, I'm not talking about some God with a beard on some cloud in the sky, but the universe does not make mistakes. It is so divinely just. It says, if you want trouble, have it. If you want love and joy and peace and harmony, have it. Choice is yours. So the question now is, where are we in this point where we can see that the suffering is becoming collectively a big issue? Can many of us, enough of us, step out of this self-imposed illusion, self-imposed cage, this self-imposed problem, and just rest with what we already are in eternity, and in doing so, free not only ourselves, but free everybody that is around us with that. And if enough of us step out of the problem into our divine nature, then instantly any problem, any suffering, anything is dissolved, and we can then come back out and create all the solutions that are already there. The beautiful societies without war, with sustainability, with cities that are beautifully filled with all kinds of things. Everything can come out of it, only as long as we decide that we are worth being free.
Exactly. That's beautifully said. And the thing is, for the future, that where do we found our manifestation is our foundation, this field, which I also call the field of all possibilities, all universal possibilities. Yeah. And what you just said, the solutions are already there. It is for us as humanity right now is to step into that field and then allow all of the possibilities to be a foundation for the solutions. And that's the only path. I think it's the path of return that I say, or it is the path of a new human consciousness, is that we have to accept that field as our foundation. And once we do, this is where we draw our reality from, and this is how we manifest our reality from. So you said it so beautifully, Roald, and I thank you so much for being here today with me. This was an amazing talk. I hope we can do it again sometime soon. I also wanted to thank all of our listeners, people that watch and listen to our talks. We appreciate, and I appreciate all the comments and all of your experiences that you share with us. I mean, we appreciate it. I thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. We're doing this for the benefit of all of the humanity. This comes from my heart, and I know Roald too, it comes from your heart. Humanity we are amazing beings. We're incredible, and what we're saying here is that we need to step into who we are and be the freedom and be the liberty that we are. So thank you everybody for watching. Until next time, bye everybody.
Thank you.